In the year of our Lord 608, the Roman usurper Phokas reigned unopposed. His comes excurbitorum, the famed general Priscus, had enough of his nonsense. Since his usurpation in 602, Phokas deposed many friends of Priscus, ruled the Roman Empire with paranoia, and offered no effective response to foreign threats. Khosrow II dealt devastating blows to the empire. His generals took Dara and were now deep in Roman territory, and Phokas took Balkan troops to unsuccessfully halt their advance, leading the Slavs to invade again. Under such dire circumstances, Priscus urged Herakleios the Elder, the Exarch of Africa, to remove Phokas. His son Herakleios and nephew Nikitas rebelled, with Nikitas taking over and securing Egypt for his cousin in 609. By 610, Herakleios reached the capital with his forces, sailing from Africa on a ship adorned with an icon of the Virgin Mary. All of Constantinople supported him. Priscus and his excurbitors didn't defend Phokas, and soon the tyrant was captured and brought to Herakleios' ship, where he was executed and his corpse torn apart. Thus Herakleios became the Roman emperor, but there was no time to celebrate, for the Persians had come as far as Chalcedon. Herakleios needed to focus on the final great Roman-Persian war, in this episode of Eastern Rome Summarized. Khosrow's great success was in large part due to his top generals, Sharvaras and Shahin. By the time Herakleios was crowned by Patriarch Exarchios in Constantinople, they had launched raids that reached as far as Chalcedon and captured every Roman city east of the Euphrates. Shahin moved even further into Caesarea in 611. Priscus was sent to retake the city, so he besieged it, but Shahin escaped him and burned Caesarea. Meanwhile, Sharvaras invaded Syria and took Antioch. Herakleios was disturbed by these incidents and alienated from Priscus. In 612, Herakleios recalled Priscus to Constantinople, where he fired Priscus and sent him to a monastery, since he didn't trust him anymore. Command of the Anatolian army fell to Philippicus, whom Herakleios brought out of exile, and the emperor himself. In 613, Herakleios attacked Sharvaras near Antioch with his brother Theodoros and Nikitas, but they were defeated and Nikitas returned to Egypt. Antioch was sacked brutally. Even the patriarch was slain. Satisfied, Sharvaras went south, took Damascus, the rest of Syria, and soon Palestine as well, where he reached his true objective, the capture of Jerusalem in 614. With the help of treacherous Roman Jews, the Persians besieged and sacked the city, massacred Christians, captured the Patriarch, and much to the devastation of the Romans, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built by Constantine the Great, was burned, and the true cross, found by St. Helena, was stolen. Although Philippicus kept Shahin at bay by invading Persian Armenia, the Romans saw a clear sign of divine displeasure. God must be punishing them, and most guessed it was for the sin of the emperor. Herakleios married his niece Martina after his first wife died, and as we know, incest is taboo. We don't know whether Herakleios felt responsible for the losses, but he was certainly distressed and did all he could to end this war. By 615, Shahin escaped Philippicus and captured Caesarea for good, making Anatolia open for invasion, and reached Chalcedon again. Herakleios asked Shahin for peace, and the Persian tried to conduct an embassy with Khosrow, but the Shah imprisoned the envoys and refused to negotiate. With the empire bankrupt during such a dire time, Herakleios halved the pay of officials and soldiers to save money in 616, but the situation hardly improved, while in the west barbarians took advantage of Roman weakness to invade as well. In 618, Sharvaras overran Egypt with monophysite support, and stormed Alexandria in 619, forcing Nikitas to retreat. Now the grain shipments were cut off. Things were so desperate that Herakleios considered moving to Carthage, but Patriarch Exarchios convinced him to stay. After much reflection, Herakleios saw that the only way to win the war was to counterattack Persia right where it hurts and force Khosrow to talk peace. Then, he began preparing for one of the most epic campaigns of all time. To finance it, he gathered money wherever he could and even melted church relics with Sergius' approval. Then he recruited like mad, withdrew field armies from the empire, assembling everyone he could find in Anatolia. About 50,000 men showed up and formed the only Roman army left in the world. With everything depending on this bold plan, Herakleios knew failure wasn't an option and thoroughly prepared by reading the Strategikon, previous campaigns, and training his forces intensively. In 622, with the full support of God and the Empire, Herakleios sailed with his icon of the Virgin from Constantinople, accompanied by Martina, to meet up with his army and launch the offensive. In the following years, we could see that geography was everything. Herakleios, inspired by Philippicus, decided to fight in the mountainous Armenian terrain. Religion was everything as well. It was obvious from the start that this campaign felt like a holy war. to stop the fire-worshipping Zoroastrian heathens from destroying the Christian Roman world, as Herakleios reminded his men daily. The army used icons as banners, and soon they marched through Cappadocia, where they met Shavaras's army. Herakleios maneuvered his way to the Armenian mountains, where Persian cavalry was useless. Shavaras pursued the Romans to a position Herakleios picked. The emperor tried to provoke the enemy into attacking by throwing a banquet and inviting the Persians over, as if his guard was down, but Shavaras didn't fall for that, and he laid an ambush, which the Romans discovered, and responded by having some men feign retreat during the battle, luring the concealed Persians into chasing them. Herakleios then showed up with the rest of his army and overwhelmed the pursuers, who soon became the pursued. Shavaras was defeated, and many Persians were killed during retreat. The Romans had their first victory in years. Anatolia was secure, and their morale was greatly boosted. But then Herakleios learned that the Avars were causing trouble, so he quickly returned to Constantinople, leaving his army to winter in Pontus. In 623, Herakleios agreed to negotiate with the Avars in Herakleia, and planned spectacles for them, but the meeting never took place, as the Avars really hoped to kidnap the emperor. Herakleios was warned and fled, but his entertainers weren't so lucky. He was only able to return to his army after paying the barbarians hefty tribute despite their previous treachery. The emperor offered Khosrow peace, which the Shah refused, before invading the Persian heartland through Armenia and Azerbaijan. He retook Theodosiopolis, most of Armenia, and approached the site of Ganzaka. Khosrow himself attempted to defend it, but Herakleios used his Arab allies to kill many Persians, and Khosrow fled. The Romans then sacked Ganzaka and destroyed the Zoroastrian fire temple of Adrogushna, as payback for the Persian sack of the holy city of Jerusalem. The army then wintered in the Caucasus, where they hired some Christian mercenaries in 624. Khosrow, traumatized by the vigor of the Romans, ordered Shavaras, Shahin, and another general, Heraklion, to attack Herakleios at the same time. But of course, the Roman emperor wasn't going to face them all at once. Using the classic tactic of divide and conquer, Herakleios separated the Persian forces, used the Armenian terrain to his advantage, and defeated first Heraklion and then Shahin. Survivors from their armies joined Shavaras, who tried to ambush the Romans and camped nearby. Roman scouts found the camp, and Herakleios seized this opportunity, attacking the Persians at night. Shavaras ran away naked and afraid, losing his men, baggage, and harem. The Romans happily wintered near Lake Van. Herakleios retook Amida and Martyropolis in 625, while being pursued by Shavaras, who stopped the Romans at the Saurus River, destroying every bridge except the one where his army waited. The Roman vanguard was crushed by the Persians, making Herakleios clear a path for his rearguard personally. A huge assassin blocked the bridge, but Herakleios didn't care. The emperor slayed the giant like David with Goliath and then charged straight ahead, ignoring the arrow fire, being hit several times, but he didn't even flinch. The rearguard, seeing the bravery of their emperor, followed suit. Even Shavaras was astonished and decided to retreat, as Herakleios seemed invincible. The Romans, now safe in their own territory, wintered in Pontus again. Khosrow was now desperate. In 626, he ordered Shavaras to coordinate with the Avars and Slavs for a siege of Constantinople, while Shahin was given a new army and stayed in Mesopotamia. He hoped the siege would draw Herakleios' attention, and it did. But Herakleios couldn't return to the capital, for if he did, all his advantage would be lost, and the campaign will fail. As conflicted as he was, he could only put his trust in God and pray that Constantinople's defenses hold. The emperor split his army. He sent some as reinforcements to the capital. Most remained under his brother Theodorus, and he took the rest with him on a special mission. Constantinople was besieged by various barbarian tribes from June 29th to August 10th, aided by the Persians in Chalcedon. Patriarch Sergius and the Magister Militum Bonus were in charge of the city, and they organized the defense. Luckily, the Roman navy retained control of the Bosphorus, preventing the siege-savvy Persians from sending much help to their barbarian allies, who, like Attila, were crap at sieges. The Avars sent countless hordes of Slavs to mindlessly charge at the Theodosian walls, but their attempts were futile, and they suffered heavy losses. Anthemius must be proud. The Roman morale remained high throughout the ordeal, with Sergius constantly encouraging defenders with his religious zeal and icon of the Virgin Mary. The Romans were convinced they were under divine protection. Heck, the Avrakagian was even said to have seen the Virgin herself defending the walls. Meanwhile, in the east, Theodorus had annihilated Shahin's army and headed towards the city. The Avars and Persians finally gave up and headed home in disgrace, in fear of Theodorus. Shahin was either killed in the encounter or committed suicide later to avoid the shame, but his corpse was whipped to disfigurement by an enraged Khosrow. while Herakleios met with the Gokturks, also known as the Khazars, and made an alliance. The Khazars provided him with 40,000 men. The Romans also intercepted a letter from Khosrau ordering the death of Sharvaras because he was pissed at his failure of a siege. Herakleios gave the letter to Sharvaras, who in turn stopped working for Khosrau. By 627, Heraklion was gone as well, killed by the Khazars in Tbilisi. The desperate Khosrau had only one final general, Rosades. In a last-ditch effort, he gave all that remained of his army to Rosades and set him against Herakleios. The Romans, meanwhile, already pillaged all the way to what used to be Assyria, and in its ancient capital of Nineveh, Herakleios met Rosades. The Khazars abandoned the Romans, but the battle took place anyway. During the fight, however, Rosades suddenly challenged Herakleios to single combat, hoping for a quick victory, but he got a quick defeat. The emperor sliced off his head with just one blow and slew several of the Persians as well. The Persian army lost heart and most were slaughtered. The victory in Nineveh was decisive for the Romans, since they just destroyed Khosrau's last hope. The Shah fled from his palace in Dastgard, which the Romans plundered and recovered 300 lost eagle standards. In 628, Herakleios was directly menacing Ctesiphon. The Persian people seriously had enough of their king, and when Khosrau rejected a final ultimatum from Herakleios, they revolted and killed the Shah. The new king, a son of Khosrau, Kavad II, agreed to peace right away, and the war was over. Emperor Herakleios had won, and all Roman territory was to be returned to the Romans. Was the war pointless? Both sides ended up with the exact same borders they started out with and are now exhausted. Kavad and many Persians died just a bit later from the plague, and soon civil war broke out. Sharvaras, with the backing of Herakleios, joined in as well, and was crowned Shahanshah for a while before being killed too. Persia had descended into utter chaos and would soon be destroyed. Meanwhile, on the Roman side, things were looking brighter than ever. Herakleios won the final Greco-Roman-Iranian conflict, and, true cross in hand, returned to Constantinople in full glory. The grateful population of Constantinople threw a full triumph for their hero, and the Senate bestowed upon Herakleios the title of Scipio. All the old Roman heroes will be proud of him. This was the high point of his career, and I don't believe Herakleios had any idea what the future had in store for him. In 629, Herakleios returned the true cross to Jerusalem and began restoring the city. Later that year, the emperor took on the Persian title of Shahanshah for his victory and began styling himself as Vasilevs instead of Augustus, a title all his successors used. Some interpret this as the moment the empire's official language changed from Latin to Greek. For the next few years, Vasilevs fixed his war-torn empire and attempted to unite the church. Back in 622, Sergius proposed monoenergism, that Christ had one energy and Herakleios had always supported it, and now with his prestige as the savior of Christendom, many Monophysites and Chalcedonians accepted this vague concept and reconciled. While it seemed that Pax Romana had been achieved once more, a new threat to the empire surfaced. The Romans skirmished with a small force calling themselves Muslims at Muta, but they defeated these strange Arabs and didn't give more thought to the matter. Yes, this threat I speak of is the rise of Islam. In 570, two great enemies of the Romans were born, Khosrau II in Persia and Muhammad ibn Abdullah in Mecca, a city of Arabia. Muhammad publicly preached about his revelations from God and gained a large following. In 622, they migrated from Mecca to Medina, beginning the Islamic calendar. Muhammad converted most of Arabia to his religion, Islam, by the time of his death in 632. Now a bunch of Arabs have a unifying religion, a strong sense of purpose, and a desire to conquer. Soon a Rashidun Caliphate was formed, and they began invading the lands of Romans and Persians in 633. In 634, the Arab armies came to Syria. They overwhelmed the Roman forces led by Theodorus and took Damascus. The sudden victory of the Arabs caused many to doubt Herakleios and his monoenergism, especially the new Patriarch of Jerusalem, Sophronios. The following year, the Arabs won more victories, and Herakleios, though unable to lead an army, raised a large one to counterattack them. In 636, with Emesa taken, Herakleios' army confronted the enemy, led by Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah. Despite the Romans having a numerical advantage, they suffered a terrible defeat, and soon all of Syria fell to the Muslims. In 637, they seized Gaza and besieged Jerusalem, with Sophronius surrendering the city in 638. Again, seeing the defeats, more people rejected monoenergism, so Herakleios and Sergius came up with a new compromise, monotheletism. This doctrine states Christ has only one divine will and will stir up religious chaos soon. However, by this time, Palestine was lost as well, and all the Vasilevs could do was save the true cross and retreat from the eastern provinces to defend Anatolia. In 639, Roman Mesopotamia and Armenia were conquered by the Arabs, who began attacking Egypt by 640. The senile Herakleios had to watch most of Egypt slip from Roman hands as well before dying on 11 February 641. I can't even imagine how heartbroken he must have been, seeing the lands he fought so hard for to liberate from the Persians only to fall to Arab newcomers in only a few years. The story of Herakleios is a tragedy, about how a fate-defying hero eventually became overwhelmed by the tides of history. The Reign of Veracleos is a huge turning point in Roman history. Most of the territory lost would never be recovered, and this drastic change ended late antiquity. But not all was lost. Anatolia still stood strong, and the Romans will adapt, like they always do during a crisis. The fate of Herakleios' successors, and that of Rome, is what I will cover next time, in Eastern Rome Summarized. See you when I discuss the Roman struggle for survival under the Heraklion dynasty. As always, thank you for watching. The music is by Faria Faraji. If you like this music, then go check out his channel. Also do keep in mind that some of the miraculous things that Herakleios did in his Persian wars were described by the poet Georgios of Pisidia, so they might not all be accurate. Take them with a grain of salt.